Michael Caine has always been one of the most grounded figures in Hollywood. Long before he became a global icon, he was simply Maurice Micklewhite, a working-class boy from London who understood life far beyond the glamour of the film industry. From his early breakthrough in Alfie to his unforgettable roles in The Dark Knight and The Italian Job, Michael Caine built a career on authenticity. He never pretended to be something he wasn't, and that honesty shaped the way he saw people, especially women. Unlike many actors of his generation, Michael Caine didn't define beauty by trends or Hollywood standards. He wasn't drawn to perfection in the traditional sense. Instead, he was drawn to presence, women who carried confidence, individuality, and something deeper beneath the surface. Over the years, through interviews, friendships, and personal reflections, a pattern began to emerge. There were certain women who stood out to him, not just as actresses, but as individuals he genuinely admired. One of the first women often associated with Caine's idea of beauty is Audrey Hepburn. To Caine, Audrey represented something rare, an elegance that didn't demand attention but naturally commanded it. He admired the way she carried herself both on and off screen. Her beauty, in his eyes, wasn't loud or overwhelming. It was quiet, refined, and deeply human. What stood out most to him was her kindness. Audrey wasn't just admired for how she looked, but for how she treated people. In an industry often driven by ego, she remained grounded, and that authenticity made her unforgettable. Caine often suggested that true beauty reveals itself in behavior, and Audrey Hepburn embodied that belief completely. She had a softness that never felt weak, and a strength that never needed to be proven. He was particularly drawn to the way she could transform a scene without dominating it, allowing emotion to flow naturally rather than forcing it. There was a purity in her expressions, a kind of honesty that made every moment feel real. Even in stillness, she carried a presence that few could replicate, proving that true beauty doesn't need movement or exaggeration to be felt. He also admired how she never seemed consumed by fame, always maintaining a sense of humility that made her feel approachable despite her global status. That rare balance between grace and groundedness is what, in Caine's eyes, elevated her beyond just a beautiful woman into something truly timeless. Another woman who fit perfectly into Caine's definition of beauty was Sophia Loren. Where Audrey represented quiet elegance, Sophia Loren brought a powerful, undeniable presence. Caine admired her confidence, the way she owned every room she walked into without ever appearing forced. Her beauty was bold, but it was also deeply rooted in her personality. Loren didn't rely on image alone. She brought intelligence, humor, and emotional depth into everything she did. Caine respected that balance. To him, Sophia Loren represented a different side of beauty, one that combined physical presence with inner strength. He often spoke about how certain people don't just enter a scene, they transform it. Loren had that effect. Her presence wasn't just seen, it was felt. There was also a natural charisma in her that couldn't be taught, something instinctive that made her stand out even among the most glamorous stars of her time. She carried herself with pride, yet never lost the warmth that made her approachable, creating a rare combination of power and relatability. Caine often admired how she embraced her identity fully, never trying to conform to Hollywood expectations, which made her beauty feel authentic rather than manufactured. Then there is Brigitte Bardot, a name often associated with classic Hollywood allure. But for Michael Caine, Bardot's appeal went beyond the surface-level image that the world often focused on. He saw something more complex, a mix of freedom, rebellion, and vulnerability. Bardot represented a kind of beauty that didn't follow rules. She wasn't trying to fit into expectations, and that unpredictability made her fascinating. Caine appreciated that she didn't seem overly concerned with maintaining a perfect image. Instead, she lived in the moment, embracing both the strengths and imperfections that came with it. For him, that raw authenticity was far more compelling than any carefully constructed persona. She had an energy that felt almost untamed, as if she existed outside the boundaries of traditional Hollywood standards, and that made her unforgettable. Her beauty wasn't just in how she looked, but in how unapologetically she lived. There was a sense of freedom in her presence that resonated with Caine, as she represented a break from the rigid expectations that often define the industry. A more modern figure who aligns with Caine's perspective is Elizabeth Taylor. Taylor's beauty was undeniable, but what stood out to Caine was her intensity. She had a presence that was impossible to ignore, not just because of her looks, but because of the emotion she carried. Whether on screen or in real life, Elizabeth Taylor brought a level of passion that made everything feel more real. Caine admired that emotional honesty. He believed that true beauty often comes from the ability to feel deeply and express it without fear. Taylor embodied that idea. She wasn't reserved or distant. She was open, expressive, and completely herself. That authenticity, combined with her undeniable screen presence, made her unforgettable in Caine's eyes. Her ability to command attention without losing emotional depth made her one of the few stars who could balance glamour with genuine vulnerability, a combination Caine deeply respected. He also appreciated how she embraced both her strengths and flaws openly, reinforcing his belief that imperfection often makes a person more compelling rather than less. Finally, there is Shakira, a surprising but fitting example of how Caine's idea of beauty evolved over time. While she comes from a different era and background than the others, Shakira represents many of the same qualities Caine admired throughout his life. She carries confidence without arrogance, strength without rigidity, and a natural charisma that feels effortless. Her energy is dynamic, but it never feels forced. Caine has often appreciated individuals who bring something unique into the world, and Shakira does exactly that. She doesn't fit into a single mold, and that individuality makes her stand out. There's also a sense of authenticity in her expression, whether through music or presence, that aligns perfectly with Caine's belief that true beauty is something that cannot be manufactured. It must come from within. Her ability to connect with audiences across cultures further reinforces the idea that real beauty transcends boundaries and speaks a universal language. When you look at the women Michael Caine found truly beautiful, a clear pattern emerges. They are not defined by a single standard or style. Instead, they each represent a different expression of authenticity. Audrey Hepburn's grace, Sophia Loren's strength, Brigitte Bardot's freedom, Elizabeth Taylor's intensity, and Shakira's individuality all reflect something deeper than appearance. For Michael Caine, beauty was never about perfection. It was about truth. It was about presence, character, and the ability to be completely yourself in a world that constantly tries to shape you into something else. And perhaps that's why his perspective feels so timeless. Because in the end, true beauty isn't something you see. It's something you feel.